it wasn't my book. I don't even remember buying it. But when a folded letter fell from between the pages, my name was written in a familiar, trembling script. And the words inside weren't just personal, they were meant for me, though I had no idea why. It was a rainy afternoon when I found it. I'd ducked into a small, second-hand bookstore on a quiet street, the kind of place where the air smells like paper and dust and stories waiting to be remembered. I was browsing the shelves to distract myself from a day that felt heavier than usual, not looking for anything in particular. The book fell into my hands by accident, a worn paperback with a faded spine, the title I didn't recognize. But when I opened it, a letter slipped out, yellowed at the edges, folded neatly as if waiting for the right hands to find it. My name was on the envelope. In handwriting I didn't recognize, yet somehow felt intimate, familiar. My fingers shook as I unfolded the paper. The first line hit me like a whisper of something long forgotten. I hope this reaches you when you're ready to remember me. I froze. My pulse quickened. I didn't know who had written it, or why it had ended up in a book I never owned. Every instinct screamed to drop it, leave it in the bookstore, pretend it wasn't mine to read. But I couldn't. Something in the letter felt urgent. Personal. Like it held a piece of a story I wasn't yet aware I was part of. And just like that, the rain outside faded. The world shrank until there was only the envelope, the words, and me. I didn't know then that this letter would lead me to uncover truths about love, loss, and choices I never thought I'd have to face. The letter trembled in my hands like it had a heartbeat of its own. I read it again, slowly, savoring each word, hoping to find a clue, a signature, anything that would tell me who had written it, and why. The handwriting was delicate, precise, almost too careful, like someone had written it a long time ago and wanted to preserve every emotion perfectly. The words spoke of moments I couldn't place, walks in a park I didn't recognize, rain-soaked evenings I couldn't remember, and a longing so profound it made my chest ache. I have carried this memory for you, though you may not know me yet. When you read this, know that I am thinking of the day you will understand. A chill ran down my spine. It was written as if the writer knew me intimately, my fears, my hopes, even the way I sometimes closed my eyes to hide tears no one was supposed to see. I looked around the bookstore, half expecting someone to appear, to say, "That letter isn't yours." But the shop was empty, silent except for the hum of an old radiator and the faint sound of rain against the windows. I tried to place the details in my mind. Had I ever been here before? Did I know the writer? Or was this one of those moments that feels like destiny, where a stranger reaches across time to touch your life? The letter continued, each line more intimate than the last. I hope you forgive me for leaving these words hidden, but I had to wait until you were ready. You will find pieces of yourself you didn't know were lost, and I will be there, quietly, in the spaces you remember. I felt tears prickle at the corners of my eyes. How could someone know me this way? And why leave a letter in a book I never owned, waiting for me to find it now? It was clear, this wasn't just a note. It was a beginning. I folded the letter back slowly, as if moving too quickly would make it vanish. Then, almost reluctantly, I turned the page of the book. There, scribbled faintly on the inner margin, was a name. A full name. It was unfamiliar. Yet somehow, my chest tightened when I saw it, a mix of recognition and unease that I couldn't place. The name felt like a key, a thread that could unravel a story I had been walking toward without realizing it. I left the bookstore with the book clutched to my chest, the rain now just a gentle drizzle. Every step felt heavy, yet urgent, like I was carrying someone else's secret and that secret was slowly waking inside me. At home, I set the book on the kitchen table and stared at it for what felt like hours. I couldn't shake the feeling that this name, this letter, was part of a story meant to intersect with mine in ways I wasn't ready to see. I reread the letter once more. You may not know me yet, but I have known you longer than you realize. When you find this, trust that every hidden thing will soon reveal its purpose. The words made me shiver. I had so many questions. Who wrote this? How did they know so much about me? And most importantly, why now? A sudden thought struck me, chilling in its clarity. Maybe the book had been waiting for me. Maybe it wasn't a coincidence at all. The idea was terrifying, yet thrilling. Some stories don't just find you, they choose you. And I was beginning to understand that this was one of them. I couldn't sleep that night. The letter and the mysterious name kept turning over in my mind, like a key sliding in a lock I didn't know I had. I kept picturing the scenes described in the note, walks through parks I'd never visited, late-night talks with someone I didn't recognize. Yet the way it was written made them feel familiar, as though I had been there, even if my memory denied it. The next morning, I sat at my kitchen table with the book open, the letter beside it. I ran my fingers over the worn pages, tracing the sentences like I could draw the writer closer, understand their voice more fully. And then it hit me. A fragment, a memory, tiny and fleeting, surfaced. I remembered a library from my childhood, sunlight pouring through the tall windows, the scent of old paper and polished wood. I remembered reaching for a book that wasn't mine and feeling a shiver of anticipation, as if something waiting inside would change my life. Was it a coincidence? Or had this moment been waiting for me all along? The letter's words echoed again. When you find this, trust that every hidden thing will soon reveal its purpose. Purpose. I realized I hadn't just found a letter. I had found a thread, a connection to something beyond my understanding, to someone who had seen me long before I could see myself. My heart pounded as I turned the pages of the book again, searching for anything else, anything that could explain why this story had chosen me. But the pages were blank aside from faint notes in the margins, scribbled with the same delicate handwriting. And yet, I felt it, the beginning of something larger than a single letter. Something that would uncover memories I didn't remember, and truths I wasn't sure I was ready to face. Days passed, but I couldn't stop thinking about the letter. It had lodged itself in my mind like a seed, growing quietly in the corners of my thoughts. Every time I closed my eyes, I imagined the person who had written it, wondering who they were, why they had chosen this book, why they had chosen me. I started returning to the bookstore, hoping for clues. I asked the owner about the book, casually, trying not to reveal too much. He shrugged. Picked it up at an estate sale years ago, he said. Lots of books like that come and go. Sometimes things get left inside. But it wasn't just a thing left inside. It was intentional. I felt it in my bones. The handwriting, the careful folds, the urgency in the words, it wasn't accidental. Someone had waited for me to find it, for a reason I hadn't yet understood. At home, I reread the letter, tracing the sentences with my fingers. One line caught me more than the rest. I have carried this memory for you, though you may not know me yet. Memory. I realized then that this wasn't just a letter from the past, it was a message meant to awaken something inside me, something I had buried or forgotten. Perhaps a secret. Perhaps a warning. Perhaps hope. That night, I dreamed of the library from my childhood again, but this time the shelves were taller, the light brighter, and in the corner, a shadow moved, someone reaching for the same book I had found. I woke up with my heart racing. Somehow, I knew this story wasn't finished. It was only beginning. I began to examine the book more carefully. The pages were worn, the spine cracked, but there was something else, a faint series of notes scribbled in the margins, almost invisible unless you looked closely. They weren't part of the printed story, but handwriting, delicate and flowing, the same as the letter. Each note seemed like a whisper, fragments of thoughts meant to guide whoever opened the book. One read, "Look closer at the places you thought you'd forgotten. There, you will find me." I traced the words with my finger, a shiver running through me. The phrasing was intimate, personal, as if the writer knew exactly where I had hidden pieces of myself, even memories I hadn't yet recovered. The next few pages revealed more, short sentences, almost cryptic. The rain will help you remember. Do not be afraid of what you see in the reflection. I didn't understand them fully, but I felt the weight of their intention. Someone had left these messages knowing I would find them. By evening, I realized I had been holding my breath all day. I had no answers, but a strange sense of anticipation pulsed through me. This wasn't a coincidence. Someone had orchestrated this, leaving pieces of a story meant to awaken me, to lead me somewhere I hadn't yet dared to go. And deep down, I knew that discovering the next clue would change everything. I hadn't noticed it before because I wasn't ready to see it. Tucked into the last paragraph of the letter was a single line I'd skimmed past again and again, assuming it was poetic, symbolic, nothing literal. We said goodbye where the river bends behind the old stone bridge. This time, it landed differently. Because I knew that place. The realization sent a slow chill through my body. The river wasn't far from where I lived now. I passed it often, usually without thinking. But the stone bridge, old, narrow, half forgotten, wasn't somewhere people visited by accident. I hadn't been there in years. Not since before my life split into before and after. I told myself I was being dramatic. That memories bend themselves to fit stories when we want meaning badly enough. Still, the next afternoon, I found myself driving there without fully deciding to. The bridge looked exactly the same. Gray stone. Moss along the edges. Water moving steadily beneath it, patient and quiet. I stood at the railing, heart pounding, and suddenly a memory surfaced, not clear, not complete, but real. A woman beside me. Laughter caught in her throat. A book in her hands. Not my hands. Hers. I pressed my palm to the cold stone and whispered, "Who were you?" The answer didn't come in words, but in feeling. Loss. Love. A choice made too young and carried too long. Tears blurred my vision as the truth began to form. The letter hadn't been written to a stranger. It had been written by someone who had loved me deeply. And had stepped out of my life so I could become who I am now. And suddenly, I understood why the book had waited. Because I hadn't been strong enough to remember. Until now. That evening, it rained. Heavy, persistent rain that drummed against the windows and blurred the world outside. I couldn't stop thinking about the bridge, about the letter, about the woman whose handwriting had found me across time. I grabbed the book and the letter, stepping into my coat, and walked toward the river. The rain soaked my hair and clothes, but I didn't care. Something inside me demanded I be there, demanded I feel what had been waiting for me. At the bridge, the water roared below. I opened the letter again, reading it aloud in the gray, dripping light. The rain will help you remember. Don't fear the moments you buried. They are yours to claim. I closed my eyes. And then, almost painfully, memories began to stir. Fragments of days long ago, my laughter mingling with hers, our hands brushing as we exchanged books, promises whispered in the wind. Emotions I had locked away pressed against my chest, warmth, joy, longing. I realized the letter wasn't just a message. It was a bridge between what I had forgotten and what I needed to remember. The woman who had written it wasn't a stranger. She had been a part of my life, a quiet, guiding presence whose love had shaped me even in absence. As the rain soaked me to the bone, I whispered her name. And for the first time, I felt connected, not just to the memories, but to the courage to face them fully. This wasn't the end. It was the turning point. The next day, I couldn't stop thinking about the letter and the bridge. The fragments of memory that had come back in the rain demanded attention, demanded answers. I returned home, book and letter in hand, determined to piece together the story the woman had left for me. I opened the book again, scanning the margins for anything I might have missed. That's when I saw it, a tiny folded page I hadn't noticed before, tucked between pages near the end. My hands shook as I unfolded it. It wasn't a letter this time, but a journal entry. Short, precise, but filled with longing. I had to step away so she could find herself. One day, she will read this and understand. She will know that my love was never possession, it was hope. Tears blurred my vision. Every word resonated with a truth I had felt but could never name. The woman had been in my life, yet distant, guiding me through absence rather than presence. She had loved me in the only way she could, by letting me grow without her shadow too close. I pressed the journal to my chest, feeling her presence across time and space. And suddenly, I understood why the book had ended up in my hands. It had been waiting for me, not by accident, not by chance. It had been waiting for me to be ready. I closed my eyes and whispered a quiet thank you, to her, to fate, to the story that had found me. For the first time, the past didn't feel like a weight. It felt like a guide. After discovering the journal page tucked into the book, I couldn't stop thinking about the bridge, the rain, the letter, and the mysterious woman who had left these traces for me. The memories had returned in fragments, fleeting yet vivid, laughter spilling over a park bench, the feel of wet grass under our feet, the warmth of a hand brushing against mine. I felt both haunted and comforted, as if a ghost had been waiting for me to finally notice. I decided I needed to go back to the bridge. The air was crisp that afternoon, the sky heavy with clouds, and the river below roared like it was carrying secrets. I clutched the book tightly, the pages soaked with anticipation, and walked slowly to the stone railing. Every step felt charged, like I was stepping into a part of my own history that had been waiting for me. Standing there, I opened the letter again. I read it aloud, letting the words fill the space around me. The rain will help you remember. Don't fear the moments you buried. They are yours to claim. When you find this, know that love does not always come as presents. Sometimes it comes as guidance, quiet and patient, across the years. The words wrapped around me, gentle but insistent. I closed my eyes and let the memories rise. I saw her face, the woman who had written the letter, whose handwriting had haunted me with intimacy I couldn't explain. I saw her smile in the rain, the way her hair clung to her cheeks, the way her eyes held both longing and courage. I remembered our conversations, soft, unrecorded, fleeting, and the lessons hidden in the quiet moments. And then I felt it, the love she had carried for me was not about possession, control, or expectation. It was about hope. Hope that I would grow into the person I was meant to be, hope that I would reclaim the parts of myself that had been hidden, suppressed, or forgotten. I ran my fingers along the cold stone railing and whispered her name. I felt tears streaming down my face, but it wasn't sorrow, it was recognition, gratitude, and awe. For the first time, I understood that the letter, the book, the hidden notes, they were all part of a bridge, a path laid out across time, leading me back to myself. I stayed there for what felt like hours, letting the wind and the water cleanse me, letting the past and present converge. And when I finally turned to leave, I felt a clarity I hadn't known in years. The story wasn't just hers, and it wasn't just mine. It was ours. And now, I was ready to follow it wherever it would lead next. The following morning, I sat at my kitchen table, the book and letters spread before me like a map. My mind replayed the bridge, the rain, and the journal page that had revealed so much. I realized there was one thing I hadn't considered: the woman hadn't just wanted me to remember her. She had wanted me to remember myself. As I reread the letters, one sentence struck me anew. When you read this, know that love is not always about holding on. Sometimes it is about letting go so the other can find themselves. I understood then that her presence in my life, even in absence, had been a quiet lesson in courage. She had loved me enough to guide me from afar, to leave breadcrumbs I could follow when I was ready, and to protect me from my own fear until I was strong enough to face the truth. And I realized I wasn't the only one who needed this guidance. I had someone in my life, my daughter, who would inherit my own patterns if I didn't break the cycle. I carefully took another sheet from the book, folded it neatly, and wrote a message for her, my words echoing the love and lessons that had been shown to me. You are allowed to feel, to remember, and to be brave. Do not let anyone make you small, and never hide the parts of yourself that make you whole. I placed it in her backpack, knowing she would find it later, knowing it would matter more than I could imagine. For the first time, I felt the weight of the past ease. The letters, the notes, the hidden words, they had done their work. They had returned me to myself, strengthened me, and reminded me that love sometimes comes in quiet, invisible ways, guiding us toward our truest selves. I folded the book carefully and held it against my chest. The story had reached its purpose. The days that followed felt different. The letters, the hidden notes, the memories I had recovered, they weren't just remnants of someone else's story. They were pieces of mine, scattered across time, waiting for me to gather them and finally understand. I carried the book with me everywhere, not out of obsession, but out of respect. Every time I opened it, I felt the presence of the woman who had guided me, the invisible hand that had helped me find myself. I reread the letters and journal entries carefully, absorbing each word, each lesson, knowing that they had been written for a moment I was only just ready to reach. I thought about my daughter, about how easily we can pass on the lessons of resilience and courage without even speaking them aloud. I realized that the letters were more than a message from the past, they were a bridge, showing me how to nurture strength, honesty, and love in the life I was rebuilding. I wrote in my own notebook that evening, words inspired by the guidance I had received. The past is not a burden but a map. Every hidden memory, every quiet voice, leads us to who we are meant to be. Carry it with care, and pass it forward when the time is right. The book sat open beside me, a reminder that sometimes love and guidance are not given directly, they are hidden, waiting for the right moment to reveal themselves. I understood now that the woman had loved me enough to wait, to let me discover the truth on my own, and to trust that I would follow the path she had laid. And in that understanding, I felt peace. Not the kind that comes from forgetting, but the kind that comes from knowing, remembering, and moving forward. It was a quiet morning when I finally felt it, peace. Not the fleeting kind, but a deep, steady calm that settled in my chest. The letters, the notes, the hidden messages, they had guided me, leading me back to myself and teaching me lessons I hadn't known I needed. I placed the book carefully on the shelf, the letters folded neatly inside, like a treasure that had fulfilled its purpose. I felt the presence of the woman who had written them, not as a shadow, but as a gentle guide who had loved me enough to wait until I was ready. I thought of my daughter, the small note I had left for her in her backpack, and the legacy of courage and love I could pass on. For the first time, I understood, the past wasn't a chain holding me down. It was a map, showing me how to move forward with strength, honesty, and heart. I took a deep breath, the kind that expands and fills you with clarity. I had remembered, understood, and reclaimed my story. The mystery had led me to something far more profound than answers, it had led me to myself. Thank you for staying with me through this journey. Don't forget to like and subscribe, there are more stories waiting, each one a reminder that even in the quietest moments, strength and love live within us all.